everybody, I'm Tim Mooney of the Timothy Mooney Repertory Theater. Welcome to number 5 of the 7 performances I'm presenting, Man Cave, a one-man sci-fi climate change tragicomedy. The last man on Earth broadcasts to whatever Klingons or Vulcans might still be out there listening, trying to explain how not to do what we did. Man Cave is available as an in-person performance, as well as a virtual show on Zoom. Tonight's video is from an in-person show, but this show, which is more than a little bit haunting already, seems even more so in the isolated setting of someone all alone captured on Zoom. For your reference, in-person performances run $1,295 plus lodging, and virtual shows are roughly half that amount, with obviously no lodging costs and many more options in terms of scheduling. I'm watching this video along with you, so feel free to ask questions on the chat below or check back in with me at my virtual booth after the show. First up, we've got 1 minute of audience reactions followed by a scene from Man Cave.
This is groovy shit that should be made and should be seen.
Because the show is dizzying, it's electric, it's electrifying.
Electric is the right word.
Electric.
It awakened me.
It's absolutely beautiful, and he's so talented and so intelligent, and it was great.
Everyone needs to see this show.
Everyone
needs to.
I just finished taking my AP environmental course, and watching this made that course come to life. Now I want to actually do something about this terrible environmental situation that we're getting ourselves in.
I thought it was incredibly eloquent and beautiful.
Tim's work is brilliant. It's poetic, it's haunting, and yet it's wonderful.
Still waiting on that ding anytime anyone might well want to weigh in. Really? Sweden? New Zealand? There's somebody there in New Zealand, right? Okay, well, Proxima Centauri, or Termina Centauri, or someplace in between. My voice goes out and you'll hear it in what, 30 years? 3,000 or so? And then you'll talk back. And 66,000 years from this tick, you'll talk to a very hot planet in your own unique accent with your own special diction. Of course, I won't be here. Nobody will. And you'll have learned English for no good reason. Unless maybe you manage to download some Shakespeare. But the planet itself won't be dead. Sure, the roads will all crumble, the buildings collapse, and maybe the last living things to survive will be cockroaches and some fungi. You might find yourself talking to some really fun guy. Sorry. It'll all go to shit for a time. And 1,000 years more, or maybe 1,000,000, the Earth has a cleanse, it rains, and it buries its carbon below once again, and the skyscrapers form some new form of bedrock, and the fungi form life, or the lizards form brains, become Klingons. And then you'll have someone to talk to from here. Except they'll speak Klingon, and it won't that much matter, because they'll all have sprung from primordial ooze and won't retain even the tiniest fraction of the institutional memory I have with me now. You could, if you wanted, catch them up on things. So, this is one way. As much as you might find you want to respond to someone quite so charismatic as me, by the time you reply, I just won't be all that much into you then. So, maybe just listen. I'm no kind of genius, just the last one to witness to things not quite costing as much as they probably should. Cross-reference to rule number 4. So, sex. Sex was kind of important to us, probably is to you too. It tingles, feels good, and you want to repeat what feels good, so you relive the success of your sex in successive conceptions. If it don't feel so good, then you're not so inspired to reseed the species, and your special branch of the prolific process simply won't stretch itself out so far. But for us, it was good. Really good. I remember it. Still engage in it from time to time. Not quite in a way you might quite call productive. But boy, were we productive, and our sudden explosion of reproductive matter outstretched or edged out all the stuff gone before us. We toddled along a really long time with maybe a million, till that whole, farming thing kind of took off. We hit our first billion around 1800. Number 2, 1920, and then 1960, and 75, 1990, 2000, 2010, 2020. In just 60 years, we tacked on 5 billion to double and triple the cumulative efforts of 22,000 long years as a species. The sex was, good. But without precedent. We were only just guessing that we could sustain at this pace. We were a great throng of sex-starved adolescents, making it all up as we went along. Extra billion? Why not? Never mind, at the same time we're using, food. We made up this sudden new craving for gas, for electric, for power. We needed it, craved it. It got us to shelter. It got us more comfort. It got us more sex. Some countries encouraged their folks reproduce. It provided protection from other states, other kinds, that great horde of those swarthy barbarians. And then we again put our words in God's mouth, be fruitful and multiply. And there, for a little brief time, that paid off. Until, it didn't. So, rule number 6, don't get over your skis. Grow only to where you can sustain the thread, expanding to unheard of numbers. The same time, demand has run multiple laps, blowing past all the output of all time gone by. Sure, easy for me to say now. Boy, when I was your age, I was some raconteur, which is great. Share affection and love. Just don't multiply as if it were a race, because to coin a phrase, that's a race to the bottom. So, speaking of races, at each step of the game, you find that you're faced with the illusion of some competition. It's us against those that are not blessed by God, or us against the barbarians. It's us against the spotted owl. It's us against the Zika virus. Okay, maybe that one. But on the whole, not. We came to this random conclusion. We were caught up in some competition. If I climb the ladder, I have the advantage, and fill up my pockets with money, which now is worth nothing, and pull up the ladder behind me. There was once a time things were random. Roll of the dice, where each roll might come up 1 through 6. But we started to roll most all 6s. More often than not, each year, hotter than that gone before. But we'd still roll a 4 or a 5, so some would say, see, random, not man, it was God. Of course, that assumes it was God rolling lower for us, and not simply smiting our sins of excess with his 6s. But we'd roll one more 6, and another. So now, those 6s were closer to 12s, and we left any semblance of random behind in the unspoken pact to never acknowledge the screamingly impossible improbability. 7, acknowledge screamingly impossible improbabilities. We grew brains over eons, forged a language or two, developed statistical analysis, if only so that, the insurance companies could figure out how much to charge us. There was that time people seem to forget the principal point of insurance. They famously said, hey, Our healthiest people are stuck paying out for the sick. That should have been a clue that all we had left was the ongoing struggle for privilege. We were all of us grabbing for stuff off the beverage cart in the few final moments before the airplane would crash to the ground, acquiring more stuff in the desperate race to fill that black hole, which was all we now had left inside. Everybody kicks in. Each one loses a little, and no one gets thrown off the ship. We apply that principle to owls and bees and coral reefs. Each one arrives. We'll make that number 8. Okay, here's the thing. I'm kidding myself. I talk to a you that I'll never know. Broadcast to a planet that lives in my brain. And even if there might yet be some you in some state of awareness on some somehow sustainable planet out there, even if you're out there, the odds I catch you in the brief microsecond of geo-astrophysical time in which you're equipped to get radio waves but haven't as yet wiped yourselves off the map are maybe 1 billion to 1. And yet, microscopic as those odds might be, they are not yet 0. And as far away as you are, maybe me, sitting here, working through all this shit on some empty planet with no one to hear, at least stirs a shift here in me. And maybe my shift in some way, somehow, somewhere is felt, say, Tralfamador, that planet so far and so very much different from me, and perhaps that far corner, that ugly, unrecognizable race of Tralfamadorians somehow is me, is connected by some not yet knowable thread. A thread as unknowable to me here now as radio waves were 200 years past. Or not. Likely not. Number 9. Corporations are made up of people, my friend, but cannot be people. A robot may well be no part human being, but robots can't consciously injure a human or through some inaction allow that a human might so come to harm. Corporations must act to maximize profit or otherwise risk getting sued by investors. It was under this guise corporations had hid what they were well aware would heat up the planet and leave it a wasteland. So, which of these two would you call Terminator? Which one of these is more like people, my friend? Which of these has the freedom to obey the commandment to do unto others as you would have them likewise do unto you? Okay, number 10. We ignore it all until we can't, and then it's too late. Deep down. Thanks for watching, everybody. Man Cave runs just under 60 minutes, and we generally do a talk back after the show to discuss the looming consequences of the climate crisis and the challenges of getting the word out in a manner that can inspire students of all political leanings to take action to save the planet. There's lots more info available back at my virtual booth and at my website, timmooneyRep.com. At that booth, you'll find replays available of my first 4 15-minute showcases, Breakneck Hamlet, Breakneck Julius Caesar, Lot O' Shakespeare, and The Greatest Speech of All Time. Tomorrow, Monday, I'm back with 2 events around Moliere Than Thou. At 6:45, I'll do another of my usual 15-minute previews, and then at 9 p.m., I'm coming back to do a live Zoom performance of the full 75-minute show in celebration of Moliere's 399th birthday. These are all available for replay after their individual performances. Thanks for joining me. See ya on Back at the